Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of JKL Media Reviews. I am going to be hosting this episode because it's my choice this week. I am Karen, and I am joined by the J in JKL, Jesse.
Hello, Karen. Thanks for giving us such a fun topic to talk about. And
Awesome. And the L in JKL, that would be Lou.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, so today we are discussing a book. It's called The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by VE Schwab. Victoria is her first name. It's a book I read during the pandemic. It came out in 2020. It was right at the end of the major part, but it was still like something that I remember from that time. And it was a really great part of my activities that I did during the pandemic. Not that I was a shut-in because I already worked from home, but it was really cool and that kind of brings back those thoughts. I've read the book now 3 times, including Friday night before we record, and I cry every time I read it, which is embarrassing, but I'll admit it right up front. So I'm going to get quick thoughts, and Lou has already put in a little request. So I'm going to go to him first. Lou?
All right, Karen. So right off the bat, my question to you is, knowing that you've read literally thousands of romance novels, out of all the romance novels that you've read, why did you pick this one for us to talk about?
Okay,
great
mostly
question.
because, yeah, mostly because I consider this book more of a fantasy with
That's what I thought.
romance in
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
There is romance in it, I'm not gonna lie, but I think honestly, this has a lot more to do with the themes of her interactions and how she got through life in the years that she was alive. So that's why I picked it. And yeah, I know there's romance in it. I was worried, to be honest. It's classified as a romantasy. I honestly, there are a lot of romantasy books that I've read that have blatant romance. And I think this one was more of a almost like a side plot, if that makes sense. And I'm sure you guys might have different outlooks on that, but I did tend to think of this as a fantasy first. What did you think about that, Lou?
Yeah, when I was reading it, I thought Karen must have chosen this book because of the fantasy aspect to keep me and Jesse interested. Though Jesse probably would have read a book like this regardless. But for me, the fantasy aspect of it was definitely the main hook. It reminds me of that other series that's been made that's been made into a TV show. It's been on for quite a while now, but I'll be damned if I can remember the name. The one where she goes to back in Scotland. Um,
Outlander
Outlander. Yes,
by
Outlander.
Diana Gabaldon. Yeah,
Yes.
I enjoy those as well. That's more of a time travel
Yeah.
thing, which I love. I love time travel.
Yeah, that fantasy aspect was the same
Yeah,
hook here.
and romance in there
And
too.
I'm surprised, though I see they are working on a film adaptation. I'm surprised it hasn't been adapted in some manner already, but I'm sure that's
Yeah,
coming. Besides the fantasy hook, I think the other thing that really worked well for me in this novel is because I've read other stories where there's immortals or beings that live for a long time, and their biggest problem is boredom. After a
right.
while, they get bored. But the neat twist in this story is the fact that nobody remembers her. And that makes for a very compelling story because we all can relate to that aspect of the story. We can't relate to being immortal, but we can definitely relate to being having connections with other people. And I think that's what really powers this story. And though I do have a quibble with the ending, but we'll get to that later. But the fantasy aspect and the fact that she keeps the dark character nebulous is also intriguing as well. So yeah, those were the main draws for me, definitely.
Awesome. How about you, Jesse?
I just adored the book, and I thought the reason why is it feels to me a fairly nothing is unique, but unique as you can be. The idea that you have eternal life, but you also have the superpower that you are forgotten and the curse. It's both, right? If
Sure.
you walk into the store and then they turn around, they won't remember you. So you literally can go, look, and then they're like,
Skylab.
yeah.
Yeah, and
And
that's part of the deal, right?
yeah, and so I liked this story. I liked our main character. I liked the idea that she had a conscience. And I also, one of the things that I the thing that she is this muse to people. So in her own way, she's eternal in a different way, though they can't remember her. That's a really interesting thought. And I almost would have liked to have actually seen some of the art they talk about. And yeah, I really liked this book and was very happy that you suggested it.
Awesome. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Although I'd been fine if you guys hated it
Yeah.
too.
Well, of course.
Yeah, it's divisive, which surprised me. And I knew about it already, but it surprised me at the time. It was a huge book talk book, as you guys are familiar with like book talk
Yeah.
sensations and stuff.
Yeah.
And it made the rounds in 2020 and early 2021. And a lot of people chimed in with, oh, it's so derivative. Addie LaRue is boring. It's like the movie The Age of Adeline. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but
I'm familiar with it.
okay, yeah, there's nothing new under the sun, as
Right.
the saying goes, and I don't think it's based on that movie at all. I don't think it is derivative of that movie. I think people love to disagree,
Yes.
especially with popular things. I tend to believe that it's just people being contrary, to be honest. And if they don't like it, great, that's fine. Put it down. There's a lot of books I don't like too. So,
And if to interrupt just a moment,
sure.
we have gotten a shorthand, my son and I, of WWE Bruce fans. And the reason we talk about there is, for example, Bruce Springsteen has a new movie coming out October 23rd, and it's all about the making of Nebraska. So they are releasing on October 17th a box set that shows the remastered Nebraska, him doing Nebraska live, and an electric version of Nebraska, which many people have been wanting to have forever. And I won't
Hmm.
go into the reason why that's important, but just know that it's a big box set. And Sony said that because of production delays, that it won't be out on 10/17, it'll be on 10/24, 7 days
Okay.
later. Happened to be the day
Right.
the movie premieres too, right? The
And
early
so
print
people are being
23.
cynical,
Yeah, so
right?
there are
Yeah.
people going, this is bullshit. I can't believe that they're doing this. There was a contract between us. The thing was supposed to be out on the 24th, instead the 24th. And so when Chris and I talk about it, he would say, and there's WWE fans, right? The wrestling fans, oh, this was bull. I can't believe that. So we have that. Our shorthand is we can't wait to hear the WWE Bruce fans complain about every little thing.
And to be honest, if that's why they're doing it to promote both of them,
Yeah, good
good
for
on them.
them. Yeah,
Good on
I'm
them.
like either way. There's just no worry.
I would have done it too,
Yeah,
to be fair.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's the same with almost any kind of media,
yeah,
especially if something becomes popular.
Yeah,
yeah,
there's always
Um,
backlash.
then someone is gonna have their input as to, hey, I hear this all the time and I hate it. Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey. This is in the book world, right?
yeah,
Those are huge and people love to. I have never given my opinion publicly on any book series that I just hate because it's not my business. I'm not gonna yuck somebody's yum. You love that book? I am all for you reading.
yeah,
And I feel like those people are like, don't read it. Don't read it. It's a waste of time. Okay, don't tell people what they should read or not
yeah,
read. But I will say up front, I should have said it earlier, but this will not be spoiler free for you people
yeah,
that are listening. And if you wanted to read the book, great. If after our conversation you think to yourself, this book sounds terrible, then, that's your right as well. I go into this with no expectation of telling you to read the book or not read the book.
yeah.
Just a caveat up front. That was weird. But you'll have to forgive us because we do talk about things in a weird way. I love that Lou
Yeah.
was so anxious to get that out of the way because it is something that I thought about when I recommended this book. I wanted to go for a book next, and I thought, let's find a fantasy book that I really liked in the past few years. I looked at my 5-star ratings on Goodreads, and this popped up, and I was like, yes, let's read this. It's fantasy. That's great. There's a romance aspect to it, but I don't think it's too prevalent. I think the guys might like this. Okay. So I want to talk first about the characters and see what you thought of them. The main three, obviously. We can talk about Estelle too, but I want to talk about Addie first. Obviously, she's the main character, our protagonist. And I honestly, I'm going to say up front, I don't think she's meant to be incredibly likable. I think that we're supposed to see that because of this curse, she's forced to do things that we would normally think as taboo, as things that we would dislike that person. If they were part of our lives, we would tell them they're doing horrible things. But because of this curse, she's forced to do them, like steal, live in other people's houses. She does just terrible things. But I want to get your guys' view on Addie LaRue, just an overall. What did you think? What do you think the curse did to her personality? How did you think she was back in 1700s France? So just a quick thing, and then we'll get to, I think I want to talk about her life before the curse after this. So just overall, Addie LaRue, likable, not likable, both. Which one? So let's go with you, Jesse.
I liked her. I think under circumstances, she had to do things that some would argue are unethical, but she has to do that to survive. Like early in there, where she pays for a room and then they won't let her go back in the room because they don't know who she is. And even though she had and you can't even get a receipt
Mm-hmm.
because they won't, the curse doesn't allow her to see, to be
Right.
remembered. I liked her. I was reminded a little bit of the Neil Gaiman character in Sandman that
Mm-hmm.
is given immortality. And
Hobgoblin.
yes, and they meet every 100 years, or yeah. And he, even though each time his life is a different way, he still is, no, I'm not tired of living.
Yep.
And the idea that the idea of monkey's paw, you ask a wish and that can be used, it isn't what you think it was, makes her an interesting. And I like how it sets up the premise that when we end up, our two love characters meet, they are literally the gaps. Rocky says in Sylvester Stallone, Rocky, the character in the first Rocky, gaps. I've got gaps, you got gaps, talking to Adrian, and we fill in our gaps. And
Hmm.
they fill in those gaps. It
Yep.
was, yeah, I liked her and I cheered for her. And when she did do something that was wrong, I forgave her.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
How about you, Lou?
I surmise the reason a lot of people don't like or have issues with Adeline or Addie is because of the desperation that she has for a longing of being remembered or belonging to some community. And that lends an air of involvement to the character. And I think that's true actually for the three top characters in the book. There's this self involvement that I could empathize with, but at the same time, I never really totally warmed up to her as a character because of that longing. But I can understand from her circumstances why she is the way that she is. And we see it in today's world with people that don't have friends, or all they do is sit at a computer or watch Fox News, whatever it is that they're doing. And so there's this dichotomy of, in today's world, there's so much communication available at our fingertips, yet the human element is missing. And that's what idle hands are the devil's tools, as they say. And I think that for Addie and even the Luke, the darkness, the stranger, he's obviously looking for something too, but it's harder to get a read on him because he's not human. So his motivations are murky, which I like because that leaves the story open to interpretation for the reader as to what people's motivations are. I think Addie's are pretty clear. She's pre-Henry. She's got this desperate need to belong, but at the same time, she can't get out of her own way because of that, because she can't make connections. And the fact that she knows that as long as she doesn't succumb to Luke's entreaties to give up her soul, she's going to live forever. And that self involvement is part of the reason why she's able to go on as long as she has so far in the story. So she's an interesting character. I don't think she's totally likable, but I do understand her as a character. And it's when we get to that part of the story, her evolution once she meets Henry that's when I started to like her more. But yeah, I think that there's this overall for all the characters there's this self-absorption that I think might turn some readers off.
Sure. The most objectionable complaint I got was that she was boring. And I don't get that. I feel like she is multidimensional, and you might not like every part of her,
Yeah.
but
I think the reason people find her boring is basically because she can't have an arc, because every day is a reset for her. Anything
right.
that she does, there's no connections with people. And if you don't have connections with people, then it's hard to make a character interesting, because the only thing that she can really has as a constant is art.
Yep.
And art is a very personal thing. So it's hard to make a character interesting that has to start their day over every day.
I agree.
And one of the things that I enjoy the book about, there was a book came out in 88 called Replay by Kim Grimwood. Great book. And
I think we talked about that book, didn't we?
I don't know if we have. I thought we may have.
I think we did, because you asked us to read it.
Yeah. Sure. And the premise is he keeps going back to when he was 25, and he remembers everything and gets to live his life again till he turns 43. And I won't give it's a great book. It's available on Kindle and paperback. For a while there it was out of print, but it's available, and it's a gorgeous book. And part of the joy of the book is, what would I do? What part of life would I want to go back to if I could magically determine? So as I'm reading this book, I'm thinking, what would I do? How would I handle this? What would I do? What is a way that I could use this to make my life better? And also, it's almost a challenge of, okay, I'm only allowed, these are the circumstances. What do I do to survive? So yeah, I found I like the character, but I understand people who don't.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because she does do some things that are objectionable in the book.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a sandpapery feeling I get from her, that part of her personality is brash and honestly just not good personally. But I think it's the curse that has done that to her.
Yeah.
But seeing that kind of thing that she goes through over these 300 years, that is fascinating to me. So let's talk about the Addie in the 1700s. While she's growing up, going with her father, the relationship she has. Estelle, I loved her relationship with Estelle. I wish we would have gotten a little bit more of that. But yeah, I found her fascinating because I feel like she is a person out of time. She is too modern for that world, and she becomes incredibly disillusioned by the people around her. What did you think of her as a person in the 1700s? And don't compare it so much to the rest of her life, but I'd love to hear what you think of her personality. What do you think she belonged in the 1700s? Do you think she didn't? Do you think she made the right choice? Let's start with you, Lou.
1700 Addie was probably the most shallow character, I would say. Her whole mantra was me. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. She did have a good relationship with her father, but not with her mother. So there was some empathy or connection that I had with her relationship with her father. And I think he gave her the love of art and drawing, obviously. And for her to lose that later on was tough. But yeah, she's She's 23 years old, and obviously I can't put myself in the 1700 mindset, but things were very different back then. Women were second class citizens, and so the fact that she had that much personality and strength of character, you have to admire that. She was obviously an unusual woman for the time period. Her mother didn't understand her at all, and her best friend was more like
Isabella, yeah.
Isabella was the type of woman that her mother wanted Addie to be. So there, and I think that's why they put that contrast of that character. So that's the character that I think would be typical of that time period. So they were just trying to emphasize that Addie was very different from her friend. But at the same time, while I could sympathize with her situation because you don't want to you want the person to be able to choose their own path, and that was very difficult or impossible to do in that time period. There's this mix of modern day sensibilities against I'm trying to remember that she's just very young and this is the time period, but most of the time when people write these stories, they between the lines still make it from a modern day perspective so that you can get into the character a little bit more. And I think the Schwab tried to do that with her Isabella, but yeah, she was my least favorite version of the character.
That's interesting. Okay, how about you, Jesse?
Yeah, I agree with Lou that she's very naive and also, but she is smart enough to know what she doesn't want. And there is that cliche of a small town girl wanting big city lights, even in this very medieval setting. So I thought, and I do think that character being so naive, being so practical yet flighty, made her the perfect person to be seduced, swindled by the dark character. Yeah.
So she was vulnerable
Yes.
because of how she felt. One of the worst things that I think could have happened to her is to get married to that man, Gerald, I think.
Yes.
He's got 3 kids. He's just looking for another mother for his kids.
Yes.
But they would have had to be intimate, and she didn't want that. And she sees Isabel becoming a mother and being being a changed person from how they were as youths. And I found her likable at that point, but also, like you guys said, selfish. If you have any want for free will in the 1700s is not your place, especially
Yeah.
if you're a woman. Men were also put into a mold if you didn't have money, for sure. And it sounds like they were those like lower middle class kind of families where
Hmm.
they did go without unless the father took his woodworking to market and
Right.
that sort of thing. Very devout, where she already saw through that religion. I think she didn't fully not believe, but she definitely wasn't lured into the cult of religion back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super interested in your guys' opinion of her. That's awesome that we have slightly differing opinions of her. And Estelle, what did you think of her relationship with Estelle? Whoever wants to go.
I thought she was I wondered if there was going to be a reveal that Estelle was something different than what she was saying
Right.
she was. Like she was also someone who had a
Her,
eternal life curse or
sure.
something. Yeah, I thought it made for a little a little bit sad that when she came back and each time going back and seeing her life and doing that, I thought it was really, I liked the character and it just made her another reason why she's coming back with this sense of loss.
Right. How about you, Lou?
Okay.
Every fantasy story has to have a mentor.
Yeah.
And so she's definitely the mentor character. I think she's more of a plot device than a character. For
Yeah.
Yeah.
me, she's the showing us what Adele wants in her
Right.
life instead of telling, which I appreciate. And so she's obviously the device that introduces Addie to these gods so that she can, the earth gods or world gods or whatever you want to call them, that Addie, it takes up with, and how she meets Luke and gets her wish granted to be immortal. So yeah, she was fine. I just thought she was more of a plot device than a character, though.
Sure. I think she did have a lot of influence on her and why her attitudes were more forward.
Yeah, but I also had
And,
the sneaking suspicion that Estelle, while she talked all this stuff, I don't think she really underneath really believed in all these gods and
mm,
that. But I
yeah.
think that was just like a cover for her to let her live her own life.
Sure, that she was a wacky old lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But I do think that Isabel didn't have an interaction with her, which led to her just giving in to the life that women led in those times. And Addie, she had a lot of influence on Addie, so that's and I agree. I think she's a plot device. I would have loved to have her fleshed out a little bit more, but the rest of the book would have suffered for that. And I get it, why she was less than fleshed out. I do that there were touchstones throughout other parts of the book that dealt with her town, which is a real town, by the way. All the settings are real. So I like that. And yeah, I just thought she was cool. I liked the relationship. And yeah, I agree. There's always the old kindly wizard that puts you on your path. And I think she was that. I agree. I was hoping that she had personal experience because why else would she warn her against the ones that come out at night? And it would have been nice to see that even if it wasn't immortality, that she had some kind of a gift or a curse put
Yeah.
on her. So yeah, I get that. And awesome. Okay, so let's move to Luke since he's the next big character. And I think of him as the devil, although I don't think that's a one-on-one comparison. I think the author is implying that it's a panoply of gods and that he's just one of the bad ones. And I don't think it conforms to any religion that we know of. There are parallels, obviously, to selling your soul to the devil kind of thing.
Crossroads Demon from Supernatural.
There you go. Sure. There are other
Yeah.
parts of media that deal with this kind of character. I hate to say it, but I kind of liked him. But then I'm someone who loves the show Lucifer as well. And I could see some parallels there also. Although Lucifer came about the same time as this book, so I don't think anything is based on that. It's that sort of character that kind of has a redemption arc, although that's debatable. There are definitely manipulations that she falls for at certain points, but their relationship is really interesting. I thought it might have been the most compelling part of the story for me is the times when they crossed paths. Let's talk about Luke. How about you, Jesse?
Yes, a very interesting quote unquote villain. And I think that he or they change over the years. I believe originally this was just another candidate victim, another person to take. And then as he's very confident that after a very quick amount of time, because of the way he set things up, that she will cry uncle and he will be able to get her soul.
Right.
However, he underestimated her. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the more that he interacted with her, the more he became intrigued by her. And
Yeah.
then you always want what you can't have. And that idea becomes alluring. And then his goal becomes two. One, he wants her to say, yes, she's tired of life. But he also, I think, in his own way, and once again, I go back to the Sandman, the
Of
character,
Gatling. Yeah.
yeah, where Dream was lonely and wanting a friend. And I think this guy, after a while, wants a companion and someone. So I think it's from my perspective, a pretty interesting character as our antagonist.
Cool.
Okay.
How about you, Luke?
I agree with a lot of the points Jesse made. I do think he's the most interesting character for a variety of reasons. Probably the number one being that we don't really know what kind of God he is. I thought of him as a pagan version of Lucifer,
Sure.
Yeah.
a non-Christian version of the devil. Uh,
Yeah.
I agree, especially with Jesse on the point that initially he just looked at Addie as another collection in his the thing that he does with collecting souls, and he thought that he was going to get her soul very quickly because he, like the devil, is very good at taking promises literally or looking for the loopholes. So when he gave
Yeah.
Addie immortal life, he also erased her from everybody's life. So I thought that was a nice twist. And initially, he thought he was going to get her very quickly. But as Addie became more resolute in her desire to live, explore the world and whatnot, he began to realize that he wasn't going to get her. And then at that point, this love-hate relationship between the two of them starts. And they each have their own set of strengths and they play off of each other, like what Jesse mentioned with Rocky and gaps. And I do think that they fill each other's gaps where Luke has all this power to perform magical things and like instant transportation, rearranging matter, and so forth. What he lacks, though, is the emotions that Addie has. He's not human, so he doesn't know how to react to human interactions properly. So Addie always has that. And I don't think she realizes that herself for quite a long time, maybe until the end of the book, that she has this upper hand and that she can manipulate him emotionally because he's just doesn't have that skill set. So I do think it's a very interesting love-hate type of relationship. I think it's no small coincidence that the character that she falls with, Henry, looks a lot like Luke. And I think that, yeah, their relationship is like the yin and yang of their relationship is what powers the novel. Every time he shows up, you're waiting for what's the new escalation going to be between their relationship. And yeah, I just thought that a hero is only as good as the villain. And I thought that he was a very worthy adversary for Addie.
I agree. Not just the times that he shows up, but the times that he doesn't, I think are a part of his manipulation.
Yes.
And
Makes the heart grow fonder.
And I think the whole start of this is when she goes back to him crying, saying, "Hey, you betrayed me. Why do they not remember me?" She was close to giving in until he threw down a challenge to her, and she said, "Challenge accepted." And I think that just grew stronger over the years because of the way that he set things up and the way that their interactions went. She didn't like that he was so smug, knowing that she would give in. And she said, then I just won't give in. And I've seen a lot of things and I want to see more. She says, I saw an elephant. And that was a big deal that you couldn't just take a plane somewhere. There weren't such things. And she definitely couldn't travel very easily. Number one, she was female. Number two, she couldn't register anywhere. She couldn't get a quote unquote ticket, that sort of thing. Getting to see things outside of her purview a little bit at a time, I think was a motivation for her because she wanted to see everything. She had this yearning to experience life. And that combination, Luke and her, the way they saw things was incredibly compelling to me. And yeah, I agree with you that I think his journey was the most interesting in the entire book. Addie, she evolves definitely, but her temperament is similar throughout the book. And I think her experiences change her, but she still has the same outlook of, I want to experience everything. And that bohemian type lifestyle. And Luke changes through the book. His whole perspective on his existence changes until the very, very end. And one thing I wanted to ask you in particular was, what did you think of the time that they had their fling together and how at the end of that time she thought about what he said and thought that it was a complete challenge? To me, I think he misspoke, and I think he didn't use that as an opportunity. I think in the back of his mind, he's okay, maybe she'll give up. if I get into a relationship with her, maybe I can manipulate her more. But then I think he needed that relationship in order to, I don't know, he had a yearning for a human connection. And to me, that's the most human part of the book, even though it had to deal with his supernaturalness. And her at the end of that, when he misspoke, saying, I see what you're doing. That's it. I hate you. I do think that was a miscommunication and that he would have gone on forever with her. So, what did you think of that part, that section of the book? How about you, Lou?
I think that just showed that he still thought of, or still thinks that during that point of the story, of her, and maybe even after the end of the story, as a possession rather than a person. I think the greatest irony with that Luke character is his reason for being is to collect souls, yet he doesn't know anything about what a soul is. And that's the thing, that it's the irony is that this guy's collected more souls and we only have one. And he's collected, I don't know, millions, billions, who knows how many souls. But he doesn't understand what it is that he's collecting. He just treats it as food. Yet if he were ever to take the time to examine any of the souls that he collected, he would find within those souls the key to making his relationship work with Addie, because he just, as I mentioned earlier, he just doesn't understand human emotions. Sure. He doesn't treat Addie as a person, he treats her as a possession. And I think that's what that section of the story was illustrating.
Okay. How about you, Jesse?
Turn the mute button off. Yeah, I think that at first, she is definitely he has the upper hand.
Sure.
But as the years go by, more and more she's getting the upper hand. And I felt like whenever she chose to have a relationship with him, for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes it's because she just wants to be remembered and recognized. Other times she wants to manipulate him to get revenge. So I thought theirs was a very complicated relationship. And I do think, as we talked about, that the more he spent time with her, the more he grew to like her as a character, as a person, more than just a possible goal. And so, yeah, I think that made it pretty cool to watch and read.
And I think like to me is he feels like she's not an equal, but someone that meets him, another part of him, maybe, that he's created this person that over the years that he could have a relationship with, because she's not a milk toasty. She considers him a challenge and not the all-powerful, I'm cowering before you, God, and I'm putting air quotes around that again. I think that they're a match for each other as much as they can be, with him having unlimited power and her having this curse and being human. I feel like he's created a monster. I hate to say that, that's the saying, I've created a monster. He created something that he couldn't control, and that's the first time he ever experienced that. And Lou, I 100% agree with you that he didn't understand what a soul was. Again, I'm going to draw a parallel to Lucifer, where he says, look, it's my job. I was given this job and I have to do it. And that was his whole thing. He did it because that was his job. And he might have liked it, but he didn't know anything else. So that's what he did. And I really do think that he thought, hey, I'm going to look like the man that she's drawing in her book. I'm going to lure her into this. This is my MO. I'm going to be someone that offers her the world and leaves it so that she will be hungry to come back and end her contract. And I think he thought one day she'd be done in one day. She'll come back. I'll take her soul and that'll be it. And the fact that she doesn't is so compelling to him that he becomes a completely different, God, I don't know how to, he's not a person, but a completely different persona. I'll put it that way. And we'll come back to these relationships a little bit, but I want to move on to Henry. Henry, I think, was cute, in my opinion. And this is, I don't know how popular it is, but it's dumb to me that a person has only one soulmate. In the world, there's a million people, and I think you're compatible with many different people. And the fact that Luke set up the entire thing between the two of them. And I think Luke understood that she would be drawn to him, not just because he remembered her, but because of the person that he is, and that she would be immune to the curse as well as he's immune to her curse. So I thought Henry was cute, a good person, maybe not the most compelling of people in the book, but I don't find him boring. I do think that he's more of a longer plot device, a more deep plot device, as it were. I do the relationship he has with Robbie and B. I thought that was cute to watch as well. And I found his curse interesting to see. And I want to know if you guys knew right off the bat that he was the other side of the coin, that he also had interactions with Luke up front, or that there was something special about him. I'll start with you, Lou. What do you think of Henry and his band of merry mischief makers?
Yeah, I do the his supporting cast, Bia and Robbie. I thought they were interesting characters. The bookstore was interesting as well. I do think Henry is the modern day version of Estelle to a certain degree because he represents he gives Addie the thing that she's been looking for her whole life, being making a connection with somebody and remembering them. I do have to say though that and I thought right off the bat that his curse was from Luke as well, because it was just too coincidental that he had a curse. His curse was interesting again, that he wanted to be loved, but he was loved by everybody. And as we know from the original Star Trek, the trouble with Tribbles, too much of anything, even love, is not a good thing. But I did find, because he was a shallow character to a certain degree, I did find like finding out about his going through Addie's life story and finding out, experiencing her issues with the fact that of the specifics of her curse was interesting, but his curse was less interesting. And so going into the backstory of his, that's the part of the book that dragged the most for me. I wasn't really too interested in. I got the concept right off the bat. I didn't really need to get anything further in that. So that felt a little bit like padding to me. And again, he's as a character, he's very introverted. So he's again very self-absorbed. And those types of people are just not that interesting to people in general. I don't think, like, you can have a story about an introvert, but whatever the story's about, it usually propels them outside of their shell, and they have to become an extrovert whether they want to or not, or interact under extraordinary circumstances. And as a normal person, they have to reach outside of their normal inner life. And for the most part, I don't really find that Henry does that, because his inner life is that he wants to be loved. And when he finds Addie, that just basically reinforces his inner life. It's odd. I do appreciate that he has very complicated relationships. It's hard to understand why B isn't as enamored with him as Robbie is. So that's interesting. But yeah, he's more than a plot device, but not much more. I guess that's the way to
Right.
put it.
How about you, Jesse?
He is a very simple character. And I did not at first recognize that he was the flip side of the coin. So that was a little surprise for me in a good way. Once again, a curse of be careful what you wish for.
Yep.
And such a simple one of the tropes is, oh, poor me. I'm a millionaire, and do they love for me or my
Right.
money?
Yep.
And
That's a big
this,
trope in romance novels.
yes. And this is where I now know that they don't really love me. They love the curse. They love what I am. And which so leaves him still hungry for connection and hungry for true affection. And so I like the idea that in the discussion, of course, Luke is going to say he planned this, whether he did or not. And I think you can make an argument that no, this was just circumstances. The other hand, you could say that is a good little too circumstance, too a little quick, but it is. I liked their time together as a couple. I like the idea of he having to deal with her curse and because his friends are so special to him that every time they had to say, "Oh, you know her,"
Right.
look, oh, this is my friend,
I've
and
never seen her before.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it was, and I did not see the reveal coming that he was even more foolish than her, and he said only a year instead of asking for a lifetime. A year can be a lifetime. So yeah, I was just really surprised in the tragedy, which set up our end, which I thought was really well done.
Yeah, it did set that up rather well, I thought.
Yeah,
And I was actually surprised to learn that he was committing suicide that day. They made that murky
yeah,
until until she re-explained that from a different perspective. And I think it's yes, people love me, but I think it's more that they see in him what they want to, and he
yes,
matters.
yes,
So like the old woman talks to her and she's not in love with him, but she sees, oh, you're like my son, and
yeah,
oh, have this. People give him drinks. People write their name and number on the bottom of cups, as Victoria does. But he realizes that people just love him blindly and they will do weird things. And I do appreciate that she didn't write it so Robbie and B were 100% that way, but they
yeah,
did they were affected by it. He
yeah.
asked B, "What do you like about me?" And she's very vague about it, but they still have the same relationship as they had before. And that Robbie was probably always in love with him, but this just intensified those emotions for him because we don't see him like burning down the building because he's with someone else. He is definitely hurt by it and upset. And I think that his relationship is more, I want to be around him no matter how he feels about me, which I liked very much. I also appreciated that the fact that they're both pansexual wasn't hammered into you. I'm talking about Henry and Addie.
Yeah.
They're both their personal lives, their sex lives are explicit, but also it's not something that is a whim.
Mm.
It's something that is developmental for their character. His failed relationship and Victoria coming in and being a stalker essentially after that, and him realizing that he also can't have relationships was, I think, the most interesting part of his character. I think that she dropped hints
Yeah.
about him running out of time when Addie would pick up the watch and see that it wasn't really moving,
Yeah.
and I think that Luke set it up. I buy into that 100%. I think everything else he's done hasn't worked. And
Okay.
so he's going to put this person in her path that will see her and remember her, and they have the capacity to fall in love with each other. He's not exactly a carbon copy of Luke, but he does look a
Hmm.
little bit like that with the floppy hair and
Yeah.
the unassuming outlook. From the outside, you see him as like an unassuming character. And I, I think that Addie was 100% immune to the curse, and he was 100% immune to her curse. I do like that aspect where he can't introduce her to his friends. I love that they made that a game at one point where she would say, "Me, I did this and this," and they'd be like, "Yeah, sure." And I also like how, on a side note, B decides that she's going to make her part of her thesis unknowingly.
Yeah.
That's a common theme throughout the book as well, which is the next thing I want to talk about is this whole plot point of her knowing that she can't actually be an artist. She can't do these things. She can't make her own imprint, but she can inspire others to
Yeah.
do these things with the writing of the song, which I loved, the people painting her picture, being intrigued by her freckles.
Yeah.
I loved how she became this character that was compelling enough to inspire, to be a muse for people. And I love how B looked into that. I don't think that was set up. I think that perhaps there was a part of her that saw that in her brain that, like everyone else, has this echo of her. I know there was someone that planted this in me, but I cannot remember who it is. I
Hmm.
think B had that same, like an imprint on her, and that's why she chose the project. And of course, Henry writing the book, her finding out that she can draw through Henry, I thought was really poignant. And him writing the book, which I always find weird that Henry wrote the book that you're reading, essentially a book within a book, but it's the book you're
Yeah.
reading. So I loved all those kind of her imprint and how she found this loophole to have an imprint. And once she finds out about it, she exploits that into, I want to put my mark on things. And I think that's a
Yeah.
very innate feeling that we all have, that we want to leave a mark in our life. I want to know what you guys thought about that and how she went about it and all that. I hate it. I shouldn't have gone into it that much, but how about you, Jesse?
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting one of the reasons why the book was fun to read is the different layers that Henry did many things for her. He recognized her, so that made her very happy, but also he allowed her to create again. And that is one of the curse part of it is she hasn't been able to create in a lasting way. So it really was, and if we're going to go with this is all part of Luke's plan, then it's perfect. He's setting up that I've given you everything you could want, and now I'm going to take it away,
That his
which is,
loophole
yeah,
is going to hurt you.
yes,
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, Lou, how about you?
Yeah, I think that was, I think like the key word that Jesse, when he spoke, said was layers. That's a subtext or sub theme throughout the story, even with places. She would uses that word. I always have trouble with a palimpsest, covering one layer with another. And that applies to not just it applies to everything in the story, not just places, but people. Basically, every lover that Adeline has is another layer of the thing that she's looking for. Her relationship, when she's in a relationship with Luke, is the same kind of thing. And having her likeness show up in art, and the fact that every time she meets B, the B wants to draw her. That's just like these layers on top of everything. And the final layer that gives her that continuity is the ability that she discovers through Henry, that she can write or draw or paint or whatever, interact with the real world again, is a pretty powerful enticement for that relationship. And at the same time, you're going, she's going to lose this.
Yep.
And that's going to be devastating for her. And that this is all being set up by Luke through Henry is just another showing of just how devious Luke really is. I thought that was a very strong sub theme of the story that I really enjoyed. And it works well because Addie's main reason for being able to hang on as long as she has is her art,
Yep.
or art, and not just her art, but art in general. So yeah, I thought that was really well incorporated into the story.
Yeah, I liked the relationship she had with Remy as well. Was someone that enjoyed philosophy and writing and that sort of thing. And I think she saw a bit of herself in him. I loved her relationship with Toby, the songwriter, although she was definitely hurt by that relationship. And there's a part of her that knows that she's going to outlive Henry and she'll be hurt at that point. But she doesn't foresee that it's going to be just a matter of months. And I think that might be the cruelest thing that Luke does in the book is this final ditch effort to push her over the edge. And on one hand, it succeeds, but I do think that, and you brought up that he's a worthy villain. And I think that is 100% true that he is her flip side. She manipulates him too, a lot in order to get what she wants. She finds loopholes, which is his thing, finds loopholes in her curse, and he hates that. that she has found a way to make her mark on the world, and he didn't anticipate that would happen, that she manages to survive. At one point, he actually takes her away from the French Revolution and takes her to Italy. And I think that was more, let's see what you do now. You're used to your life there. Let's put you in a new situation. Although it's a benefit to her as well. And she sees that. So yeah, I do think they're worthy opponents. I think that the impact that she has on the people around her, again, it feeds into that longing that we all have to have an impact, and how we root for her to actually have someone that gives her that. And we see it in little snippets through the book, and it's a book thing where things build on each other. Like you said, a palimpsest is said throughout the book. It's not quite that. She acknowledges it's not quite that. Like, the town isn't rewriting itself. There are parts of the town when she goes back that she recognizes, so it's not a complete overwrite. But she does see, when she goes back to visit her town over the years, that the first time she recognizes people, she sees what's happened to them. And then the second time she goes back, she sees her mother and how bitter she is and how Isabel is downtrodden. Third time she goes back, most everyone is dead, and she plants the tree on Estelle's grave. She goes back again, the tree is huge and blooming, and she gets this injection of, I've made an impression here.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she goes back and the tree has been hit by lightning, whether that's Luke's doing or not, I don't think it was. I think it was just chance. And that feeds into her dark times. And every time she goes back, it gives her that impetus to continue on. Something happens that makes her say, I need to continue, because the town is continuing on. And I feel like a part of what made this town, when I was here and people remembered me, now that they don't and that they lived on without me, I got to go do that now. And I loved that part. I loved how she planted the tree on Estelle's grave. I hated that when she went back, the tree was gone and there was only a stump there. It made me tear up a little bit when she was just inconsolable at that point. And seeing her through the years and how different she was from her original environment, and seeing all of that, I think was a unique plot device. And it's not something that you see very much, is that someone has a touchstone that they hate. Essentially, she did not like this town at all growing up in it. But there were parts of it that she misses. And her dad, Isabel, Estelle, going back, seeing the house, seeing the tree, being devastated by the fact that her father died pretty much within a year of her getting this curse, and how she missed that time. If you guys have any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear either of you.
No, I think you covered it well for me. I love the fact that she keeps running into challenges, but she finds a reason to believe, a reason to keep on.
A motivation.
Yes,
In
exactly.
anything she comes up against, yeah. A challenge sometimes, yeah. How about you, Lou? Anything?
No, I think you've covered that pretty well.
Okay.
Good.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No, it's good.
Okay, so if you guys have anything else to talk about the book, anything?
We're going to talk about post.
Yeah.
Henry?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. So
I was going to talk about that.
Okay.
So at the end of the book, and a lot of people have issues with this, she finds out that Henry is going to die because of the deal he made with Luke. And number one, she hates Luke for it. And I think that's valid. It's a very cruel thing that he did. And I think it tears her. And she has finally found someone that sees her, that loves her, that gives her everything she has been wanting over 300 years. She can make her mark through him, and almost a direct impact on society through him. And the fact that Luke set it up and is saying, "Hey, you're gonna lose him anyway, so you might as well come with me." And her striking back with, "If you want me, you got to keep him alive." And Luke does a lot of really awful things in the last part of this book. He takes days away from them by speeding up time when she's with him and hitting the point home that he can't give you what I can give you. And while I do think that he is a soulmate to her, he's definitely very cruel and manipulative. And I think that she finds a way to live with the decision she has to make. And I think she has to make that decision because Henry didn't do anything to deserve that. And she sees it and she sees a way that she can fix it for him and decides that's what she's going to do. She's lived 300 years. It's sad, but she's okay with living as long as she lived. She had more than a lifetime. And she does finally end up going with Luke. And one of the things that I thought when I first read it is, where's the sequel? Because I would have loved to see that. Her and Luke butting heads against each other while living, I don't know, off the grid, and her disagreeing with the things he does. How would that change him? Because we don't see that. We don't see that the impact that she's had on him as far as his job. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the ending of the book, what you thought of it. Did you see it coming? That sort of thing. Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Lou.
Okay, so I can understand where people would be unhappy with the ending of the book because it seems that it's the whole thrust of the narrative has been Addie finding a connection, and then she finds one, and then she's willing to give it up so easily. She doesn't really fight for keeping that connection. Yes, she fights to save Henry, but she's giving up the thing that she's been looking for the whole story, and there's no possibility of her finding a new connection if she carries out her master plan of spending time with Luke, but at the same time poisoning the relationship to the point that he'll let her go again. But she's going to be back where she was at the start of the story. So that's not a very satisfying ending for the character. And like you, the first thing I thought is I'd like to see a sequel. And I was unclear if when the curse on Henry was lifted, he should have stopped remembering her because
Luke can do whatever he wants,
Luke
right?
can, but Henry can't.
No, but Luke can alter the curse however he wants. No, he can just get rid of the fact that he dies.
Yeah. And then that's a storytelling convenience that I guess you have to hand wave because following the rules that the book is set up, if Luke doesn't change the deal, but just negates it, Henry shouldn't remember Addie anymore. And he does have the writings, but he wouldn't know where they came from. But you could argue that he was at some level, some quantum entanglement level, he was compelled to write that story because he had some sort of connection to it. So I can understand why people probably weren't too thrilled about the ending. I was a little disappointed myself, to be honest, and because it just it leaves you with a taste in your mouth that Addie hasn't really learned anything, that she's just going to go back to what she's done. But on the other hand, she did sacrifice her status and was willing to go with Luke again. But again, she's got that master plan that she's going to make it so uncomfortable for them that he's going to let her go again. It's just, I see the sacrifice part of the story there, but the character is not really going to evolve or can't evolve because of the nature of her curse, which sort of gives me mixed feelings about the ending.
Sure. Luke does make it clear that he can't negate his curse, but he can modify them. So I think that's the loophole, that the convenience that we're supposed to buy into, that he can't change it completely, that he can just give Henry the rest of his life back, but he can't take away everything. I think honestly, throughout his life, he might actually be wary of other people loving him.
I was left in the impression, though, that curse that Henry was living under was negated, though. So all people are not going to just instantly fall in love with the guy. Or did I misread that?
I don't know. I know that Luke says he can't take away the curse. He can't do that, but he can modify it.
So at the end of Henry's life, Luke is still
He
going to
gives
claim his
his
soul.
life back.
He gives us, so he's not going to claim his soul.
Correct. At least
Okay.
not after the year.
But will he at the end of Luke's or Henry's normal lifespan?
We don't know that.
Okay.
He's not going to
So
die then.
yeah. So I appreciate art that leaves room for interpretation, and you can argue that doing it at the ending is also a viable option. I think I just would have liked something a little more conclusive.
Right.
Now, whether she left it that way because she wants to write a sequel, I don't know. She wrote this in 2021, and I don't know what she's writing now. I don't know if you have any inside knowledge about that,
Yeah,
Karen,
she's
but
written another book in that universe, but
okay.
it has no connection.
Okay.
It's a vampire book. But she has said that she doesn't want to write a sequel to it.
I can understand that because given the open nature of it, I think no matter what she would write, she's going to alienate the fans of the original book.
Sure. And yeah, I get it that part of me is like, why did it end there? Why did she do that?
Yeah.
But part of me is also, what choice did she have? She feels like Henry's a victim of Luke, and she doesn't want to be a victim of Luke. So why would she want Henry to be a victim? And she loves Henry. So seeing him die because of this horrible thing that he didn't understand at the time, and she modified her curse, but he doesn't have time to do that. Henry doesn't have any time left to modify, to find the loophole. At that point, I think it's a desperate save for Addie that I'll go with this guy who I've known my entire life in order to save you. And I think it's almost the decision that she rebelled against, that she was supposed to marry this guy that she wasn't in love with, didn't have any connection with. But I do see Luke as a connection for her.
Oh, definitely.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that she's trading a lovely, heartfelt connection for a contentious, sometimes on, sometimes off connection with Luke, which might not be the worst thing ever. He needs to have someone call him to the carpet every once
Yeah.
in a while.
I guess the flip side of that argument would be that Addie's become the thing that she's hated because now
Right.
she's going to manipulate the deal much in the same way that Luke has been manipulating her deal. That could be another reason why there's some division in the fan with the reception of the book as well.
I agree. Okay, how about you, Jesse?
I like the ending because we've shown she is willing to play the long game. And so I like
Yeah,
the
we see that
idea.
through the whole book, right?
Yes. And so once again, she is playing the long game. The idea that she is sacrificing her happiness so that Henry can have a full life is a worthy sacrifice. So I'm okay with the ending. I think it is, especially because Henry had set himself up in such a poor way, right? That he
Yeah.
gave everything, he gave the rest of his life so that he could have 1 year of being everything to everyone because that's what he wanted. And
Right.
that's easy for me to say is foolish, but who maybe
He was on
so
the verge of suicide at
right.
that point. So
Yeah.
a year is,
Yes.
it's longer than he was going to live.
I'm sure many people regularly said this, but the people who say I don't want to live till I'm 80, ask them again when they're 79. And the idea of right that she uses Luke's ploys against him by putting in the loophole that okay, I will stay with you as long as you want me, and not the
Right.
rest of our lives.
And I'm going to
Till
make you
death do.
miserable. Yeah. And what does that mean? Stay with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's because she thinks in the long run, he will get tired of her and he will release her. And he'll
Right.
either release her by giving her death or he'll release her by letting her go and continue to live her life. So
Right.
I think it was a pretty good ending and in a really, I did not see the twist coming and I really liked once I got it and saw that. It was good.
Yeah, the first time I read it, I didn't see it coming at all. As you guys know, I love an HEA, a happy ever after. That is
Yeah.
my goal when I read a book, when I see a movie. if
Mhm.
it has any kind of storyline that can have a happy ever after. There are times when I think a happy ever after will be trite and won't fit in with the story. I feel like they got a happy ever after in this book, and that's controversial. I understand. But I think she got what she wanted, even though it's not the path that she thought she wanted. I
Mhm.
think that she and Luke, she might be satisfied with their relationship. And yeah, she's got this plan to make his life miserable. There are couples like that in real life that stay together for a very long time, giving each other crap. And this is that to an extreme. I think that he's willing to put up with that because in his own way, he's in love with her. And overall, when you see the fandom of this book, they are into their relationship. Luke and Addie are the relationship they
Yeah.
love in the book. I feel that way too, to a lesser degree. I'm not going to make fan fiction based on them or anything, but I think that they are soulmates as much as Henry and Addie are soulmates. I think Luke made a horrible decision to curse Henry because Henry is the type of person that she would want a relationship with. He is around arty friends. He
Yeah.
has artistic bents as well. As we can see, he loves reading and he can write. So it's the type of person she would be attracted to anyway. And the fact that he put her in his path and him in her path, that I think that backfired greatly. And I think that he was surprised by Addie at the end that she wasn't just willing to say, Henry's going to die anyway, so I'll go with you, that she makes this bargain with him and says, look, I'll continue on. I'll get over him, but you won't get over me, as we've already seen. So I'll go with you. I'll give in to your demands, but you got to let Henry live. And I think that shows that she does have an unselfish side, that
Yes.
she is willing to give up something that she has never wanted to give up for this person that she fell in love with. And again,
Yes.
I completely understand people that are unsatisfied with this ending. There are people that hate Luke. Personally, I don't love him, but I find him incredibly interesting. And there are parts of the book that I feel sorry for him and that I feel him changing and becoming a more dimensional person. And I say person, you guys know what I mean though, right?
Yeah.
That his character changes over the course of the book. I think that she is going with another person that she has a connection with in order to save someone that she had such a deep connection with that she doesn't want to see him punished for what Luke has
Yeah.
done. I do think that there's part of her that says, I'm going to make his life miserable, but I also think there's a part of her that is in love with Luke. And I think that there will be times that Luke is challenged and tested by her, but I do think he's also playing a long game. We can see that's his thing. He made a deal with Mozart, he made a deal with Shakespeare,
Yeah.
and they made an impact on the world and he took their soul, but he finds this person that challenges him. And like Batman and the Joker, they're equal in their resolve. And I love their relationship. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I love them together. I loved her and Henry together as well. But like I said, I think people have more than one soulmate. And I think in a way, Luke is a very strong soulmate for her. Okay, so overall, and I know we don't do ratings like
Yeah.
5 stars or whatever, but is this a book that has made an impression on you? Is this a book that you'll be thinking about? Is this a book that you liked? Or is it a book that it passed through your life and that's going to be the end of it? And I think I probably get what perspective you're coming from, but let's go ahead and ask. Let's do Lou first.
Yeah, I don't think it's something I'm sure it's not something I would revisit. I do think it was worthy of a read, but it's just something that I've picked up and put down. I'm sure I won't come back to it. The complexities of relationships between Addie and Luke are interesting. In a way, it reminds me, or the equivalent of it would be for me of somebody from Star Trek, a female character trying to fall in love with or having a relationship with Q or Trelane from the Squire of
Sure.
Gothis. Like their their reference point is not because the romantic version of love is that if you love somebody, their safety and happiness is more important to you than your own, and that doesn't exist in this with these characters because their connections are totally based on the desire to make a connection with something else. And is that a good basis for a relationship? I guess maybe depends on the person, and also depends as a reader how you view what makes a love relationship work. And while that's an interesting philosophical hook, the characters per se don't hook me enough to that I need to come back and revisit them at any time in the future. So I definitely think the book is worth a read. I really admire the restraint that she showed in not bringing in too many historical figures, just enough to give it a air of verisimilitude. Uh, but she didn't go crazy like I think like the Forrest Gump movie works for me up until the point where then he starts doing all these crazy things like with a t-shirt and running across the country, and like it just becomes so ridiculous that it just lost me at that point. Up
Right.
until that point I thought this is a far-fetched story but I can relate to it, but then it went on to this extra basically he might as well have been God and created the earth in 7 days nonsense, which just took me out of the movie. With this book, the characters, I can understand them. Can't really say that I dig them that much, but your mileage will vary depending on your own sensibilities. But yeah, definitely worth a read, but it's not something that I would come back to.
Okay. How about you, Jesse?
I keep a list of the books I read, and for my own pleasure, I will mark if it's a highlight book of the year. And this will get one of those marks. This was a highlight of the year. I'm really glad. Because there are so many books left to read, there are so many TV series to watch, so many movies to watch. I don't do a lot of rewatching just because I'm hopefully, if one day I ever retire, that's what I'll do and rewatch a lot of stuff and see and reread books I love. But I loved spending time with this character. I thought it was really well done. I would not have read it if you had not suggested it. It fell under my radar totally. And so I'm glad we got to spend time with it. And I'm really glad we got to visit talking about it.
Awesome. Same here. I love the water cooler stuff we do. And I think that's part of why I recommended this because I don't think, number one, I don't think it was on your radar at
Yeah.
all. And I think Lou would have never read this book if I hadn't suggested it. It's not your thing, but I'm
Yeah.
glad that you really enjoyed it. See, to me, I read so fast. I read this in 3 hours Friday night.
Wow.
Yeah, that's me.
No, but it's still crazy.
So
Mhm.
it's nothing for me to revisit a book, but I pick and choose. And this one was a product of me reading it, like I said, during the pandemic. And then I wanted to test that like a year later. So I reread it and I thought, okay, yeah, this is a great book. And then me recommending it gave me an excuse to reread it and then to talk about it with someone because my husband doesn't read and he has dyslexia. So there's a good reason for him not reading. He reads comic books, which I love, and he's
Yeah.
not uncultured, but we're opposites when it
Yeah.
comes to reading books. I never have anyone to talk about a book with. So this is my outlet.
Yeah.
And I tried to pick a book. I think I picked Project Hail Mary when we talked about that, or was it the other book that we read by Crouch? I don't remember, but I think I picked that book as well because I wanted to talk about it desperately with someone and I just
Yeah.
never found anyone. So I went through my stuff on Goodreads. I'm the same as you, as I keep a list of what I read. And I thought, hey, let's talk about this book. I would never be able to talk about this with anyone. I thank you guys for indulging me again. I'm glad you enjoyed the book. I was scared that this would not be your thing, to be honest, because the themes are fantasy, but they're different and it has a lot of romance. And one of my sayings is that every genre has romance. Die Hard has romance. Star Trek had, and what you said about Q, I think that the relationship between these two is very much like Picard and Q. That becomes an ever evolving relationship where he outsmarts Q and makes him a better immortal. And I don't think we saw that between any other pair. Trelane was a very fleeting personality, and he was a Q. That's my belief, is that he was a
It's a
Q.
child.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. But I do think that Q and Picard was a super compelling relationship. Their interactions, I thought, were very interesting. And you saying that made me think this relationship seems very much like that, where they're matches for each other,
Yeah.
but they don't like each other.
Yeah. I just repeat that definitely the big hook for me was the fact that she was an immortal and nobody would remember her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
That's
that's got to
unique.
be the worst purgatory that you could imagine.
exactly.
Yeah.
But she makes the best of it, which
Yeah.
again is part of the equation too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's our conversation. I'll wrap it up by asking where people can find you, Lou.
Sure. You can find me on YouTube at Lou's Reviews or on our flagship station, the JKL Media Reviews. As well, you can find me on Twitter and X at lou.w.sitsma. And just a heads up for next week's episode, we're going to have a special guest, Hans Lilia from Lilia's Library, the number one and longest running Stephen King fan site on the web. And we're going to talk about King in 2025, who's had another banner year.
Definitely. I can't wait to talk to him again. Okay, Jesse, where can people find you?
You can find me at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter, aka X, Blue Sky. Would love for you to reach out to me and follow me so we can have fun talking. You can hear me talking music on Set Listing Bruce. Just finished a full month of September celebrating our 10th anniversary. Still have some fun episodes coming up in October and November. So I hope you check that out. And I am really looking forward to our Stephen King discussion next week.
I want to put a plug in. The interview you did with your son was really great.
Oh, thank you.
I enjoyed it highly. Seeing little parts of you that I don't see on Sundays was really cool. Your behind the scenes family stuff between you and Chris. And that was a great conversation. So if you guys check out that and you like him there, I would say look through his catalog. I'm sure there's a lot of things you like.
Yeah, one of the things that I was really proud of that too. I thought he did a really good job and we had a lot of fun. We are scheduling one for November and one in December, and we're going to talk about his cowboy fandom and how that started and how that affects the family. And then we're going to do, because you know how much he loves WWE, we're going to talk about that. So
That's
we're
awesome.
we're going to look for an excuse to do it once a month. He and I talk all the time, but
Sure.
just to have that, I think it'll be cool.
That's great.
Thank you for that. I will let Chris know.
Sure. Yeah, he did a great job.
Thanks.
It's as you got this bug through me.
Yeah.
And I find that very flattering. And you know how, and I got the bug through Lou. So It's like a cyclical thing here. And it's when someone shows an interest in talking and broadcasting it to whoever wants to listen, I find that wonderful. It's another way that, let's bring it full circle, that you can make connections with people that you normally wouldn't. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm so glad you're going to do more. I'm there for it.
Good.
Even though I'm a 49ers fan, and so
yeah, I know.
Cowboys fans are our mortal enemy.
Yeah, we go.
As well as Giants. Okay, you can find me at Aliveria on social media. I'm not there often, so don't get offended if I don't really interact right off the bat. I do follow back, so there's that. I have a blog, alliestuff.com, and please email us at jklmediareviews@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And if you have any remarks based on something we've talked about, if you just want to, hey, look at this, maybe review this movie, maybe review this book, that would be great too. With that, I'm going to say goodbye and to make your mark. Go out there, make your mark. So goodbye, everyone.
You're here.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. See you.
And scene.
The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.